Despite going through a bit of a rough midseason stretch, I still believe that the Kentucky Wildcats can win the national title this season.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, writer for various SEC-related things. But on this podcast, we take a dive into all things Kentucky athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. On today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to be talking about how Kentucky could win the national title this season despite a bit of a mid-season slump. Also going to talk about the Bracketology that has been released by ESPN and CBS Sports, the net ratings, not rankings, what they mean for Kentucky, and then I'm going to give my prediction for the rest of the regular season. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. And if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. If you're listening on podcast, I would appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think Kentucky basketball is going to be all right. Things are going to be okay. I still believe that the Wildcats can win a national title this season. Why? Well, they compare to a similar team last season that made a run at the Final Four, the Miami Hurricanes. This is not my original thought. I want to give credit here to Trilly Donovan on Twitter. Some of you guys may be familiar with some of his work at Trilly Donovan, again on X/Twitter. He said, "It's true, but here I am today in defense of John Calipari. Why? Because he tried something different. Not many coaches do that. The new offense is fun and awesome. The defense is horrendous, but Miami made the Final Four with this exact same formula last year. Don't fret, Big Blue Nation. It's not as bad as you think." So let's take a look briefly at Kentucky basketball right now, and let's compare it to the Miami Hurricanes from a season ago. Right now, according to KenPom, Kentucky has the 7th best offense in the country. They have the 7th best adjusted offensive efficiency. They have the 102nd best defense in terms of adjusted efficiency. Right now, they are projected to finish out the regular season 21-10, 10-8. If you plug those numbers into Bart Torvik, another analytic website, it tells you that the Wildcats will finish at about a 7 seed. But if they pick up a couple of wins either in the SEC tournament, so they win it, or possibly if they make one or two more big moves in conference play, then they may find themselves up towards that 5-4, maybe even seed line if they're able to really step on the gas here to wind the season down. Last year, Miami, number 6 in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency, number 99 in adjusted defensive efficiency. Very similar to the Kentucky Wildcats right now. I think based off of that, we can make the assumption that Kentucky has the ability to make the national championship this season. We have talked so much over the past few weeks, maybe for the past couple of years on this show, about historical trends in the NCAA tournament. As the game has evolved over these past couple of seasons with the introduction of NIL, the transfer portal, and the experience, I guess, thereof of these really interesting developed teams, you are going to see more often different things that buck historical statistical trends. You're going to see more veteran teams with more experienced pieces because of COVID, because of NIL, because of the transfer portal, mesh together and make runs in the tournament. You're going to see some younger teams make some pushes, despite maybe having some lackluster defense. You're going to see teams that don't have the overall talent level compared to some of these other squads that are able to just simply push through. And again, buck historical trends. I'm going to sit here and tell you today, I think this is very possible. I think Kentucky could go on a similar run to the Hurricanes of a season ago, but I think it is also dependent on what Kentucky's draw is and where they finish in the seed line. Miami, a season ago, finished as a 5 seed and was in the Midwest region. That region included Houston, it included 2 seed Texas, and 3 seed Xavier. Those were the 3 best teams in that region, according to the bracket, whenever things started. Miami started their run against Drake. And if you go and look, Drake had a pretty good defense, pretty solid offense as well, with a really good wing to boot. They had one player that they were really, really strong with, and whenever he was not on, they struggled. They shut him down, and they ended up winning that game, I believe, 63-59. It was a low-scoring game. Miami, who had a really good offense, was able to kind of duke it out and play a gutsy-style game and get their first win of the NCAA tournament. Not all of them have to be pretty, especially in March. We've seen other teams that have gone on runs do similar things a season ago. You can also point to a couple of different games this year. Kentucky specifically against Arkansas on the road. Just a really poor shooting effort all around from both teams, and yet the Wildcats were able to pull away in that one. Second round, round of 32, Indiana. Top 30 team on KenPom, has a good defense, better offense, very aggressive at the rim, got a lot of their points from inside the arc, and then they had an excellent wing and Tracy Jackson-Davis. The Hurricanes were able to run past them as well, 85-69, just blew them out. Indiana has been on a slide, I guess, as of late over these past couple of years, and that's honestly was just a good matchup for the Hurricanes, who have a really good offense, were able to pace things, were able to get out and run and kind of do what they wanted to do. And then in the Sweet 16, you had Houston, arguably the most difficult win that the Hurricanes had in this stretch. Elite defense, great offense, a slower pace, but Miami ended up shooting 57% from the floor, 44% from 3, went on a 16-2 run over 3 minutes midway through the second half, and the game was over. Sounds like something Kentucky's capable of, shooting really well despite the opponent being really good and making a run. Now, of course, their defense has to be able to step up just a little bit, and who knows if Kentucky's able to put things together here in the NCAA tournament. Maybe they'll play a little bit of better defense. Houston also had a pretty bad shooting game. It happens. Sometimes it's about the matchup. I think that Kentucky could make a run with the matchups. The final game that the Miami Hurricanes won a season ago was against Texas. A little bit worse than Houston when it comes to the metrics, but they were still able to get there regardless. Good defense and offense, very balanced. They had some really good depth. They were inconsistent at times, but they were winning. They had won 7 straight games before losing to the Hurricanes. Miami went on a 13-2 run with about 4 minutes over the course of about 4 minutes and change later in the second half, and that game was over. So if Kentucky is able to kind of get their hot shooting going, play just a little bit better defense, they could absolutely make a run in March. You may say, by the way, what were the final scores of some of these other games outside of the Drake win? 85-69, 89-75, 88-81. They were still able to win games scoring in the high 80s and giving up some points as well. Kentucky can absolutely replicate this formula, but they've got to be able to close out some strong wins here over this this final stretch of SEC games to get to that 5 seed line. Something that I've had a conversation about with several other people over these past couple of weeks is if Kentucky falls to that 7 or 8 seed line, it may end up being a good thing because you have an opportunity to punch out one of the best teams in that region of the bracket early. And Kentucky has the ability to do that. We've seen them beat North Carolina earlier this year. We saw them compete with Kansas and probably should have won that game had they closed things out properly. This Kentucky team has the ability to win. They've got the ability to win. They're just going through a slump right now, hopefully, and they'll be able to bounce back out of it. So where is Kentucky right now in terms of bracketology, in terms of projections, and in terms of the net ratings? Because those will definitely come into play once Selection Sunday arrives. I want to dive into all of that in just a second. Before I do any of that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. When you are hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are there for the right role, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It is not just another job board. They have a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else, and LinkedIn does that all while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is super easy when you have all of those quality candidates at your fingertips. It's so easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours, within 1 day. And LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire, but thankfully, LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make this process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring, and you should go and post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege today. Again, that is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. I really appreciate you guys making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. Again, if you have not subscribed to the show already, I would really appreciate it if you would go ahead and do that. If you're listening on podcast, would appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. So we've talked about Kentucky basketball. They're going to be okay. Hopefully they're going to be okay. They still have the ability to win the national championship, make the Final Four, make that run that we know these talented players are capable of. Where do they sit right now? Where do the Wildcats sit as of today in the bracketology? Well, actually, believe it or not, CBS Sports has miraculously updated their bracketology. Thank you, Jerry Palm, for finally doing this. This is the first time, I think maybe in the history of me looking at bracketology, so a decade plus, that Jerry Palm and CBS Sports have a bracketology updated more recently than ESPN. Ladies and gentlemen, this is absolutely insane. The fact that we were able to get CBS Sports to do something on time with their bracketology. It's a really, really good company. Jerry Palm himself is great at what he does. I'm just picking and teasing. But yeah, I do want to take a look at CBS first because they have some interesting things going on here that maybe you won't see at other websites. So Kentucky right now, according to Jerry Palm and CBS Sports, Palm, by the way, also really, really good when it comes to college football playoff stuff as well. Palm has Kentucky as a 6th seed in their bracketology. In the East region, that would include UConn, Kansas, and Duke. You talk about matchups. Ladies and gentlemen, this would not be a good matchup. This would not be a good region because if you beat number 11 seed Colorado, you are playing 3 seed Illinois. By the way, just throw them in there as well. Oh, by the way, 5 seed Utah State in there as well. Oklahoma as an 8 seed who started the year off very hot. Boise State and St. John's as the 7 and 10 seed. Rick Pitino in this region of the bracket as well. Holy smokes. This is a really, really good division. Kentucky would not like to find themselves in here. Other 6 seeds include Florida Atlantic, Clemson, and Colorado State. Kentucky would like to rise, I think, a little bit here again because it would be really important to try and find some different matchups. Let's say that you were possibly able to rise to that 5 seed line. You would then be able to play in the place of somebody like Dayton, Auburn, or San Diego State. You could be in a region with maybe Houston again. You've got Tennessee, who you know you can compete with. Wisconsin, who has had their ups and downs. Creighton, who's really good as a 4 seed, but is also beatable, I think. If you're in the region where you would be instead of Auburn, you could play a team like Baylor, who has struggled. Arizona, who has lapses in the tournament at times. North Carolina, who you beat earlier this year. South Carolina as a 3 seed, and I know Kentucky can compete with that team if they're able to if they're given a second chance. I mean, just other regions in this bracket may be a little bit more easier than the one that they would be put in there with UConn and Kansas and Illinois and Duke and goodness gracious. But that's what CBS Sports has right now as a 6 seed, and they go and they rank it out to where you can see where these teams fall within their respective seed lines. So you can see, okay, is Kentucky close to being a 5 seed, or they're closer to dropping to 7? They're actually the best 6 seed. According to Jerry Palm, Auburn is the worst 5 seed. So you could see if Kentucky goes on the road and they beat Auburn, that would be a massive, massive resume boost, I think, for the Wildcats, who are sitting right now, by the way, number 26 in the net. And we'll get to that in a second. But the Wildcats, I think, are close. They're close to kind of maintaining that course, according to NCAA tournament projections, at least from CBS Sports. ESPN still has Kentucky on the 5 seed line. Joe Lunardi tweeted out earlier, I believe, his top 4 seeds. And Kentucky's right there at that 5 seed line still as of February 5th. The Bracketology website was updated most recently on February 2nd. Kentucky, a 5 seed in that East region. This I would expect to be updated within the next 24 hours. Kentucky would be playing in a division with UConn, Tennessee, Iowa State as the 4 seed, Duke as the 3 seed. Again, just another really tough out here. But, I mean, hey, if you're able to get past that 4 seed, and don't forget Richmond, potentially as a 12 seed, you're going to be looking at a lower level team here. Appalachian State, possibly looking at a team like McNeese State, Charlotte, Boise State, somewhere around there. UC Irvine, teams that Kentucky could struggle with, I suppose. I mean, they can lose to anybody. We saw them lose to UNC Wilmington earlier this year. I mean, the Wildcats, it is just truly dependent on draw and whether or not they're picking up steam, at least a little bit on the defensive end. Looking at other regions, I mean, you could find yourself in a region where Houston and Wisconsin are the 1 and 2 seeds. You've got Alabama as the 3 seed. By the way, Alabama projected to win the SEC, at least right now, according to Joe Lunardi. Kentucky right now at 5-4 in conference. They've essentially eliminated themselves from having that opportunity to win the regular season title, unless some really chaotic things unfold and Kentucky's able to win out. But again, the Wildcats still in position to kind of maintain that 5 seed. I would encourage any of you, by the way, that are interested, go over to Torvik. Go over to Bart Torvik and just go to Kentucky, go to the Teamcast, and sort through different outcomes. You can change win-loss predictions for the rest of the season. You can see where that would slot in the regular season, in the NCAA tournament. You can also predict what would happen in the SEC tournament as well. I would encourage you guys to go over there and play around with that, because it'll give you several different outcomes and kind of show you what Kentucky's ceiling and floor is right now. So, final thing I want to note here, net ratings. Kentucky right now number 26 in the net ratings, right above number 27, Gonzaga. And if you remember correctly about the net rankings, about how they work and how you can pick up quad 1 wins, a team at home, if you play a team at home, they need to be in the top 30 in the net ratings to be a quadrant 1 win. Ladies and gentlemen, the Gonzaga Bulldogs right now are in that top 30 at number 27. So when they play Kentucky this weekend, it will possibly be a quad 1 opportunity for UK, as long as the Bulldogs don't lose to Portland on Wednesday, and they've got a 99% chance to win that game, so they should be okay. So there you have it. There's your update on the Bracketology, update on the net ratings, and I want to kind of talk here to wrap up the show about what I think is going to happen towards the end of the regular season. Before I do all of that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. The Super Bowl is coming up in just a few days. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about getting some friends, getting some snacks, getting the best seat on the couch, and placing down some super awesome bets before the event starts. And FanDuel has so many different ways for you to end your season with a W or 2 or 3. Because not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58 between the Niners and the Chiefs, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown. If you think a specific receiver or running back or tight end is going to get involved, for all you Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce lovers out there, how many points will be scored? Will this be more of a higher scoring affair, or will this be lower scoring, like the game against the Chiefs and the Ravens just a week or so ago? And so much more on top of that. New customers, if you join today, you'll get $200, 200 big ones in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. Again, that is FanDuel.com/LockedOn. You can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, wrapping up the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Again, I really appreciate you guys tuning in today. Subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you're thinking about the team, about how the season's going to turn out. I think things can still be pretty darn good for the Wildcats this regular season. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, let's predict the rest of the regular season. As I mentioned earlier, arguably my favorite website on the planet, KenPom, currently has Kentucky finishing the regular season 21-10, 10-8 in SEC play. We're going to go through here, and I'm going to tell you just pretty much games I think Kentucky can win, will win, and games I think Kentucky will lose, can lose. I'll give you my record prediction. They are 15-6, 5-4 in the SEC right now. In need of a boost, and thankfully, these next 3 games, Kentucky is projected to win all of them. They play on the road at Vanderbilt tomorrow. We'll have a preview episode tomorrow. Make sure you check that out. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Kentucky's projected to win that game. Win it by 10. 84% chance to win that one according to KenPom. I think Kentucky wins. Vanderbilt is the worst team in the SEC. I've seen them in person. I've watched this team throughout the course of the year, and it has been a painful watch every single time. I do not like the way Jerry Stackhouse runs his offense. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they don't. Most of the times they don't. Hopefully this is a game where that continues and Vanderbilt's not able to create anything in isolation on offense. They just struggle at times. I hope Kentucky's defensively more sound than they have been. They'll have a chance to show out in this game and for people to be like, oh, well, there's the defense, even though it's really not like that there, like not quite there, because Vanderbilt's just that bad. But I think Kentucky wins this game. At least I hope they do. If they don't, we may be having some very different conversations heading into this weekend. And I mean some drastically different conversations about the direction of this program. If they lose to Vanderbilt on Tuesday, and I hope they don't. They're projected to beat Gonzaga. I still think Kentucky wins this game. I think they do. I think Gonzaga is a great team. Again, like we've said over and over the past several years, they got a good offense. They've actually got a pretty good defense as well to boot. Relatively weaker schedule, but it's still a very good team. Should be a fun affair. A game Kentucky can lose, but I think they're going to win it. So now you're 17-6, 6-4 in the SEC. Ole Miss at home, I think Kentucky wins this game. Ole Miss is not as good as their record suggests. I think they'll lose a few games here to wrap up the regular season. They'll make the tournament, I think. I just don't have a lot of faith in the Rebels, who can be better in upcoming seasons with Chris Beard. So you are now at 18-6, 7-4 in the SEC. You then go on the road and play Auburn, which I think will be your second most difficult game here to wrap things up. This would be so massive if Kentucky were able to pick this one up. I think they lose this one. So now you're looking at 18-7, 7-5 in SEC play. Then you go on the road and play LSU. Another game Kentucky can lose, where LSU can just get out and shoot really hot and win this one. I'll say Kentucky wins. I think that Kentucky will pull this one out, despite it being a difficult environment and difficult contest. Only a 60% chance to win this one right now, according to KenPom. I'll say Kentucky wins this one. So now you're looking at 19-7, 8-5 in SEC play. You return home to play Alabama, and I think Kentucky wins. I think they win. I think they will win this game. This will be a big win, quad one win, big time opportunity for Kentucky to pick up a resume booster. I say they do it. I say they do it. Some people don't think they're going to win. Kentucky only has a 40% chance to win this game at home, according to KenPom. I'll say this will be their 20th win of the season, and they will improve to 20-7, 9-5 in SEC play. I'll say they improve to 10-5 in SEC play and 21-7 when they go on the road and beat Mississippi State. Hopefully. Mississippi State, not good at shooting threes, really good around the rim. Please, let's hope that they have a game where they statistically play to their averages and they don't shoot the lights out. Kentucky's got to stay focused in this one. State's a good team. They are. State could win this game by 30. I think Kentucky goes on the road and wins it 21-7, 10-5. Make it 11-5, 22-7 when they return home and beat Arkansas. Arkansas not that good this year. So you're 21-7, And then you are 22-7, 12-5 in the SEC when you play Vanderbilt at home. Hopefully, you're supposed to win that game by 20. I hope Kentucky wins that one. We saw how last year turned out against the Commodores late at home. And then Tennessee on the road. Kentucky will lose that one. So you have 22-8, right? Or 23-8. And then you have 12-6 in the SEC. That's where we said things earlier in the year should about bottom out. I think that would be fine. That could get you to a 5 seed. It could definitely get you to a 5 or a 4 seed if you win the SEC tournament, which would be on the table in a neutral environment. Kentucky could absolutely do that. They could. Let's hope that they have the ability to do that. If you want to give your predictions on how the season will end up, if you think Kentucky loses all their games, if you think they miss the tournament as a whole, they just fall out of contention, if you think they win every single game, let me know in the comments below. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnUK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and follow the show on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Have a great rest of your day, and God bless.